and we're going to hold their feet to the fire and have them explain to us why America must restrict its ability to speak to one another so that Israel can perpetuate its genocide, so that we can continue to protect their pedophile sex trafficking blackmail network. How exactly are we obligated to do these things? Why am I obligated to pay for the education and the health care of Israelis when I don't receive these things from my own government? Why am I obligated to defer having children and defer getting married to make sure that Jewish people have a growing and expanding nation, perpetual safety guarantee from America, when I can't have a family in my own country? When I try to go out and build a career and my life is destroyed because I used a racial slur? When I can't even protect the identity of America as a European Christian nation, I have to protect the identity of Israel as a Jewish nation? How is any of this reconcilable? How are any of these obligations to a foreign nation more important than America's obligation to its people?
The destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
Good afternoon and welcome to Beholden To Truth. It is your humble host, Joshua, here with you for another one of our happy hour sessions, sitting outside of the gym, sipping our pre-workout, getting caffeinated. Before we go and get our physical gains, we have to make our mental gains, do our part in the Groyper war that is now fully out in the open. It has been declared. Obviously, this is not a tactile war. We're not talking about violence. We're talking about information warfare. And I have some updates that I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys. I put out a little bit of propaganda last night, a hype reel, to get everybody, feeling the fighting spirit that we need to feel to get animated for protecting America first. And that hype reel was doing very well on Instagram. It's got over 1,000 likes, I think. Over on YouTube, it had accumulated some good viewership just in the first 12 hours. But breaking news, 30 minutes ago, it was banned from YouTube. 5-minute reel of Nick Fuentes recapping the response to his Tucker Carlson interview from Con Inc., the Zionist right, the $7,000 club, whatever you want to call them. Everybody who is pro-Israel took to Twitter, are now hitting community guidelines, reporting on all the social media platforms for talking about what our purpose is, which is standing up against the Israel lobby, standing up against international Jewry, to claim our country back to its rightful progeny, to its ancestors, to us, white Christian people. And that's not to the exclusion of all other people who aren't white or who aren't Christian, but it is for the purpose of protecting the sacred inheritance that our country's laid down, our ownership of this country, our identity. That is the purpose of the first and the second and the third Groyper War and America First at large. So as I said, I put out a little 5-minute hype reel with some great music. This perfect song that I found to go along with one of Nick's monologues, talking about these people like Josh Hammer and Mark Levin, the others in the $7,000 club, who are shaking in their boots due to Tucker Carlson platforming Nick Fuentes, and the commentary from the larger internet being 98% positive. And I choose that number pretty specifically because 2% of the population weren't so happy with it. You probably know who those 2% are. And so I put out this promo video reel. I do these things for free, by the way. I have no personal relationship or professional relationship. I've never once talked to Nick personally. I've always supported him because I support the cause. So I took some of his commentary about these individuals and their disdain for the heritage American, their unapologetic nepotism, their promotion of ruining our lives. Anybody who is anti-Israel, who speaks critically of the Jewish religion, of the nation of Israel, of Jewish culture, anybody who does those things, they want our head on a platter. And I mean that somewhat metaphorically and somewhat not metaphorically. Specifically, you had Josh Hammer, who writes for Newsweek, who is a staunch Zionist, who is Jewish, who is married to an Israeli with Israeli children, using his position in America to advance Jewish causes, He went to the Daily Beast after the interview and talked about how Tucker Carlson is now the foremost anti-Semite, and he has allied himself with a Hitler apologist. A new Nazi age is upon us, blah, 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 blah. All the same stuff you would expect from somebody like this ilk. Mark Levin did the same thing on his show. Seth Dillon is obviously unhappy, the owner of Babylon Bee or the Zionist Bee. Ben Shapiro, all of them are squealing like pigs as a result of this interview. And so I go and make this video to hype up our people. It's not calling for violence, not even remotely. It's simply highlighting what they say in their own words and how it contradicts the interests of the white majority in America and the Christian majority in America. And anybody who is America first, meaning America must be a sovereign country. We make our own decisions about our economy, our military, our culture, our population. No other country gets to decide those things for us. No one should have such influence in making those decisions for us. No ethnic group of people, no foreign nation, no foreign religion. So I do this masterpiece of a 5-minute video. I probably watched it 20 times in the last night. It's just so good. The music for it pairs perfectly. Everybody's loving it. First, they give me not a strike on my account, not a formal strike, but they tag it and say, this can't be monetized. Okay, fine, whatever. And the song was not copyrighted, by the way. I specifically chose a song that's not copyrighted. And they say, we can't monetize this. And so I hit the appeal button and say, well, why not? Okay, Nick doesn't have a problem with me using his content. The musician doesn't have a problem with me using his content. And there's no calls for violence. There's no hate speech. What's the deal? Why can't I monetize? So I hit the appeal button, and then 30 minutes ago, they say, you know what? We looked at your video again, and now we just banned the whole thing. So this relates to the Groyper war, relates to Israel's war, which they have a very robust plan. It's an 8-front war. Previously, it was 7 fronts. They added an 8th front, and we're going to walk through those real quick just to show you the breadth and scope of this openly declared war. Okay, so when we say the Groyper War, that we are going to war with ideologies, people groups, not in a physical confrontational way, not in a violent way, but purely in a matter of information. Well, they have declared war, not an information war. That is one front of it, but they have declared war in terms of military confrontation, violence, genocide. They've done all of those things in their declaration for war. Josh and Nick declare war on purely an informational basis. Our content gets banned. They can openly declare war, kill tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. They can announce that they are using deception to achieve these means. Whereas we say we're leading with nothing but the truth, objective facts. You can verify them. All the statements are on the record, coming from our government, Israel's government, Jewish influencers, Jewish capitalists, billionaires. We use their own words. We don't put words in their mouth. When Josh Hammer says we need to neutralize Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, what does that mean? What do you think it means? At a minimum, it means professional reputational assassination, destroy your ability to feed yourself, destroy your ability to communicate with your followers and with the population at large. At a minimum, it means those things. Reputational assassination, but it's intentionally left vague. Josh Hammer doesn't add the disclaimer that, oh, by the way, I'm not calling for violence. We do that because we know if we don't do that, we'll get banned off of the internet. They don't bother to make this disclaimer. They just say, hey, somebody, can you please neutralize Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes? And you just leave that up to your imagination, what neutralize means. And so that was the nature of Nick's monologue. He says, listen, if we said something like that, somebody should really go out and neutralize Ben Shapiro. Someone should neutralize Josh Hammer and Mark Levin. You already know these people would be screeching. They would be contacting their fellow Jews on the left. They would be using cancel culture. They would be using their golem of the ADL, Southern Poverty Law Center, Media Matters, Right Wing Watch. How do we know they would do this? Because they just did it 2 weeks ago with Gavin Wax doing this, turning the group text messages over of young Republicans who were talking about Jewish influence and race, turned over their group messages to Politico, which is obviously a left-leaning journalist outlet, and got every single one of them fired from their jobs. A week later, you had Paul Ingrassia running for the office of special counsel underneath Trump. His text messages get leaked. Politico does a hit piece about him. He no longer has a political career. That's what they do. Why can't we do the same? Why can't we say, hey, none of these people should work in government. None of these people should work in media. None of these people should be influencers. That's what Nick said in the clips that I compiled. He said none of these people should be listened to or taken seriously. Turn their volume down. And so if you want to see the now banned hype reel for Groyper War 3, you got to go check it out on Rumble or my Substack or Instagram, so long as it stays up over there. So we are teeter-tottering on the edge with YouTube, which is frustrating because I finally unlocked monetization there to help pay back 1/100th of the cost that I have invested in this platform. Some of you guys don't know. I've talked about this before, but I've gotten a lot of new followers. Running this platform for the last 5 years has cost me over $50,000. That's not an exaggeration. Literally, $50,000. Let that sink in. So when you talk about what have you done for the movement, can we trust this guy? How many other people do you know have invested $50,000 of their personal funds? This isn't an angel investor. This isn't donations that I've received. This is me working a normal 9-to-5 job at almost 40 years old, taking $50,000 from my life savings that should be down payments on a mortgage. It should be saving for retirement. It should be planning for getting married and having children. That money instead has gone to the mission of America first. That's what we have to see in this world. I've tried to live by example. I've lost my career. I've put tens of thousands of dollars into this. My personal reputation in my community, with my family, with my friends, the opportunity to have a family, all of those things have been sacrificed. I'm not going to say happily, but I have endured those sacrifices for the purpose of this mission. And the constant stress of doing all of the hard work only to have it one click of a button wiped out on the internet. Wiped out when I finally unlock a decent subscriber base on YouTube. The other day we hit 5,000 subscribers, which is pretty nice. Still peanuts in the big scheme of things, but still, okay, I'm happy with the trajectory we're on. We got 111,000 over on Instagram. And that's what I would like to see on YouTube. It's kind of hard to do that when you put a 5-minute video up with some music and compilations of Nick saying, these guys call for the destruction of our professional, political, personal lives all the time. They don't hesitate to do it. They don't make sure they claim with an asterisk, oh, when I say go out and destroy this person's life, they must be neutralized. They don't stop and say, but hey, I'm not talking about violence. You know, we wish them well. We don't want to hurt them. They don't do any of that. They don't have to worry about being censored or taken out of context or anything like that. They just openly call for the ruination of our lives, up to and including vague calls for neutralization. So that's breaking news in the last 30 minutes. One positive note, this brand new, extremely aesthetic colorway just dropped for the Save Europa line. This one, I gotta say, looking absolutely fire. You got the Roman color scheme, the maroon and gold of the Save Europa line. It's probably my favorite. I'm just looking at it on camera. It just looks so good. We're going to go into the gym. They call this a pump cover. You call it a hoodie. Lifters call it a pump cover. You go in, you get your first few sets, you get the pump, and then you take the hoodie off. Reveal to the whole gym that you've been hiding your power level. So you probably need one, okay? And even if you don't lift, you need a hoodie to stay warm in the wintertime. So if you want to help me grow Beholden To Truth, offset some of these very costly things in my life, then you can get yourself something from the Anti-Zog line or the Save Europa line over on BeholdenToTruth.com. Meeting the people that you actually want to meet this day and age is basically impossible. Well, I have a solution to these problems. You're wearing your Anti-Zog merchandise, that cutie from across the gym. She knows what the Zog is. She she knows that Save Europa is code for white genocide. Or if it's somebody of the same gender, boom, you just got yourself a new best friend. This is your opportunity. Everybody's always complaining about how hard it is to find people who know what's really going on. Well, this is it. This is how you broadcast those beliefs to the world. Also, subscribing to my monthly Substack. First and foremost, that gives you access to all the content that gets banned on YouTube. Second, it goes a long way in helping me try to do some kind of insurance against all of these costs in my life. So I appreciate your support there. I just wanted to give myself a compliment on designing such beautiful merchandise that gets the message out, that makes you look good and aesthetic, keeps you warm. Christmas time is coming up. I know you got a lot of white people in your life who you're trying to red pill. This is your way to do it. And it's also your way to meet other people who are like-minded. So let's go back, though, and let's talk a little bit more about the war. The war being Israel's 8-front war and America's really 1-front war. Our front is America and its soil and its people. Israel's war is 8 different fronts, including in America, which they themselves have proclaimed. That's not us interpreting and saying, oh, Israel's at war with America or Americans. No, they went out and said that. Israel declared war against Americans who hold certain ideologies or certain priorities. Israel declared war on America. You need to let that sink in. They said, one of our 8 fronts in the various wars that we have going on is America against Americans. How is this tolerated? How are we sending them billions of dollars in financial aid, military aid, diplomatic aid, intelligence aid? How are we doing all of these things for a country who has declared war on us, on Americans? How on earth is this reconcilable to any American politician? Anybody who holds the keys to our military, our economy, our secret intelligence agencies, our foreign and domestic policy. How is anybody occupying any of those roles okay with being an ally and sending money and military, diplomatic, and financial aid to a nation who has declared war on us? And so I'm going to talk through that a little bit more specifically, because this isn't hyperbole. I'm not making up the fact that Israel declared war on America. This came from their prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. So if you don't know, Israel has first declared 7 different fronts of war. And these are the various Middle Eastern countries. You have a war against the Houthis in Yemen. You have Hamas, obviously, in Gaza and the West Bank. You have the Islamic Revolutionary Guard and the Ayatollah in Iran. You have Hezbollah in Lebanon. You had Assad in Syria, Iraq. And then the 8th front of their war, all of those are tactile military conflicts, confrontations, using violence, murdering people, including genocide in Gaza and the West Bank. Those are all military objectives. They have an informational war declared on Americans as an 8th front. And this is acknowledged by people like Benjamin Netanyahu, as I said, who said that we have a serious problem in America. We are losing the support of the American people, and in particular, the young people of America and the Christian Zionists in America, who previously reliably donated into the coffers of their Zionist churches, who then sent that money back to Israel, used their positions in the pulpit to say that the Jews are God's chosen people, modern day Rothschild-funded Israel on the back of the Nakba, murdering tens of thousands of people, displacing hundreds of thousands of people, ongoing for the last 80 years. All of that is supposedly required to be a Christian, according to Christian Zionists. But we're even losing their support now. And we're losing the support of the young people. And so this is an existential problem, because if those constituencies don't support the cause of Israel, then Israel folds like a wet paper bag. If America, specifically America's politicians, are hearing from their constituency, young people, Christians, people who are simply America first, that I don't want anything to do with Israel anymore, okay? I don't want my tax dollars going to pay for their military endeavors. I just found out, not me personally, but many people are learning that Israelis receive free college educations, they receive free health care. Meanwhile, the average family in America has to pay $2,000 a month for their health care. We have to go $100,000 in debt to get a college education. Nobody can afford to buy a home anymore, thanks to things like BlackRock and State Street, Vanguard, all of these trillion-dollar asset managers coming in and buying property, selling them for triple the price to raise the home prices in entire neighborhoods in one fell swoop, making home ownership, the building of equity and a nest egg for your family, an impossible dream for Americans. All of the Americans who are awakening to these problems that are connected to Jewish influence internationally, the nation of Israel, we're losing their support. We have to do something about that. And so this is where you see Benjamin Netanyahu say, we are going to launch a brand new Hasbara, which is their word for propaganda, information warfare campaign to influence the minds of the American people and specifically targeting the youth. We're going to target influencers. We're going to hold seminars, webinars. We're going to invite them into cushy paid vacations and tell them exactly how to digest these and regurgitate these talking points about Judeo-Christian values, Israel being a beacon of democracy in the Middle East. All of the old talking points about Israel. This is the Holy Land. You would rather the Holy Land be defended by Jews rather than Muslims. Pick one, doesn't really matter. We are going to pay these influencers $7,000 per post to go and popularize these ideas on social media. Simultaneously, in this eighth front informational warfare of Israel against Americans, they are going to call on Jewish wealthy billionaires in America like Larry Ellison to straight up buy our media institutions, our social media platforms, and our legacy media platforms. You have Larry Ellison taking a majority stake in TikTok and immediately hiring IDF agents to modify the algorithm to suppress pro-Palestinian content, suppress content from people like Nick Fuentes. And then you have his son going and purchasing CBS and Paramount, and then further wanting to expand that media empire to include Time Warner. He's already placed Barry Weiss, who is an Israeli spy, to lead CBS's programming. So Paramount, CBS, TikTok, in real time, we are watching Jewish people quite literally occupy the leadership positions of our social and legacy media outlets to do what? Obviously, to promote Israel and their interests, to stamp down on anti-Semitism in America, criticism of the Jewish people, their religion, or the Jewish nation of Israel. All of those things have to be squelched. This is the eighth front in Israel's war, and this is in their own words. This is what they have said they are going to do. It's coming from them. They declared war on us, Americans. And so when I or Nick Fuentes respond simply to defend ourselves and say, you just declared open war on America, okay? We're declaring war back. And we're making it clear that we're not calling for the death or harm physically of anybody. What we are calling for is simple cancellation. You can't run the largest media conglomerates in our country. You can't occupy Senate. You can't occupy the White House. Okay? You can't run our economy. You can't tell us what to do with our military. That's what we are calling for as Americans. They are calling for the elimination of the First Amendment. They are calling for the neutralization of people like Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, and they do all these things publicly, unapologetically, and they tell you if you disagree, you are an immoral, anti-Semitic, evil person, worse than Hitler, you're a modern-day Nazi. And if you want to say these things on social media, you're going to get banned. That's the dynamic here. They can declare war on Americans. We say, hold on, we have a right to defend ourselves. We have a right, constitutionally protected, by the way, to speak aloud about these problems to each other. They say, no, you don't. No, you don't. We need the government to come in and say, you want to talk about Israel in a negative way on a college campus, guess what? You're kicked out of school. You want to do so on social media, guess what? We're going to call your employer and get you fired. We're going to call you an anti-Semite. That's the kiss of death. Congratulations, you're unemployed. You want to move to America. Well, guess what? If you've ever used social media to be critical of Israel, if you criticized America, that's fine. Come on. You're welcome to come into America. That's no big deal. If you've criticized Israel and you want to move to America, no, we can't do that. Sorry. So that's where things stand with the Groyper War 3 that has been declared by Nick via the America First platform. That is one arm of it. There is a second simultaneous arm. First arm is information warfare. Keep doing what you're doing on social media. Whether you're doing it anonymously, whether you have a platform with your name and face and likeness like I do, either way, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't get discouraged. Don't feel bullied by these people. You have the right to do everything that you're doing as bestowed by the Constitution, which is simply representative of God's will. Freedom of consciousness. Speech is the expression of thought. We are all allowed to think. We are all allowed to say what we think. That's a right given by God. The Constitution doesn't grant that right. It protects that right. And that's true for everything in the Constitution. So simultaneous to protecting our freedom of speech, doing our work here, speaking through these problems, we are going to take this war in person, not just digitally, and I'm not referring to violence for the 1 millionth time. We are going to take our information war in person to the political events, to the rallies, to the college campus events of J.D. Vance, who wants to be president in 2028, to Turning Point USA, who want to claim ownership of the young Republican population of this country, to interviews on whatever outlets will invite us. And we are going to go through all of these avenues, and we're going to confront the Zionists, the Jews, people who are Israel first, Officer Tatums of this world. And we're going to hold their feet to the fire and have them explain to us why America must restrict its ability to speak to one another so that Israel can perpetuate its genocide, so that we can continue to protect their pedophile sex trafficking blackmail network. How exactly are we obligated to do these things? Why am I obligated to pay for the education and the health care of Israelis when I don't receive these things from my own government? Why am I obligated to defer having children and defer getting married to make sure that Jewish people have a growing and expanding nation, perpetual safety guarantee from America, when I can't have a family in my own country? When I try to go out and build a career and my life is destroyed because I used a racial slur? When I can't even protect the identity of America as a European Christian nation, I have to protect the identity of Israel as a Jewish nation? How is any of this reconcilable? How are any of these obligations to a foreign nation more important than America's obligation to its people? Our obligation to Jesus Christ and his kingdom here on earth? Our obligation to our people who are not Jewish, who are the descendants of Europeans, and our nations? Why is Israel and the Jewish people a higher level of importance to all of our politicians, the owners of our media conglomerates, the people running our economy, the dead soldiers we send overseas? How is any of this fair? How is any of this reflective of what the founding fathers wanted when they said no foreign entanglements? How else would you define Israel? We've been fighting wars, I would say for them, some would say with them, for 80 years. We've been giving them financial aid more than any other country in the world for 80 years, to the tune of $250 billion. And that's not adjusted for inflation. If you were to adjust it, it would be close to $1 trillion. And that's just in direct financial aid, not including the cost of each of these individual wars, which exceed several trillion dollars more. Not including the cultural cost of the aftermath of each of these wars, sending millions of non-white, non-Christian refugees into our country, thereby changing the culture, thereby changing the economy, where they don't contribute anywhere near the economic contribution of heritage Americans, where they are the majority of recipients of SNAP, Medicaid, temporary aid for needy families, all of the other social welfare programs that they disproportionately consume while disproportionately underpaying the taxes that fund all of those programs. We have every right as Americans to say enough is enough. Not only do we want all of this to end, the relationship with Israel, the expectation that America is a life preserver for every human on the planet, the idea that they don't actually need to assimilate when they come here, they don't need to learn English, they don't need to be Christian, they don't need to care about the white majority, they don't even need to care about our economy. They come here, they gain money for themselves, and then they send it back to their home nation. You ever look at those receipts? You ever actually look at the remittances of Hispanic people, Somalian people, Nigerian people? Some of them work hard. Some of them obey the law. Guess what they do, though, with that accumulation of wealth? Do they go and reinvest in the American economy? Do they donate to American charities? Yeah, go look up that answer. Have fun. Enjoy that. Enjoy finding out how much of the social welfare programs they take in versus how much they pay in taxes. So that is the eighth front, the war that has been declared on us, that we have been drug into, that we have to respond to. The Groyper War is that. That's its definition. It is the ongoing social media warfare, the information warfare, and it is the direct political confrontation of the political realm at each of these in-person events to send a message to our politicians, to send a message to the political parties, whether they're independents, Republicans, or Democrats, saying if you are Israel first, if you have a problem with anybody voicing their grievances about Israel's role in America, the Jewish religion, Jewish nepotism, if you're critical of any of those things, if you're quick to say those people are anti-Semites and Nazis, you're going to have to explain yourself and explain how any of that is America first. You're going to have to explain why it is that you married somebody who is not white. You're going to have to explain why it is that you married somebody who's not Christian. You're going to have to explain why it is that you said, okay, I'll take that money so that I can ascend the ladder of political success. Okay, I'll institute hate speech laws. You're going to have to explain all of these decisions that you've made. And so this war has only just begun. Groyper War 3 is upon us. We are going to go out there. We're going to hold people accountable. It's going to take multiple years, by the way. This isn't something that we win in a month or in a season or a single year. This is an accumulation up to 2026 for the midterms, 2028 for the presidential cycle. This is what's going to influence who is nominated to be in what positions in the cabinet, obviously who is going to be president and vice president, who are going to be admitted into Congress. This should also be at the local level as well. When you hear in your city, county, state, somebody running for mayor, governor, district attorney, if they have publicly expressed the support for Israel, the support for legal and illegal immigration, the support for religious tolerance, you should be confronting these people, making sure that they are held accountable for their views. You can record it. You can put it on social media. The more, the better. It's unfortunate that my contribution to that in terms of the propaganda, the pro-America, America first content that we need got banned. Hardly surprised though. But if you want to see that, head on over to Instagram or Rumble and pray for me that my platform doesn't get struck down completely. We've had a huge impact so far. Hopefully we're able to keep the YouTube, keep the audience growing over time and get people fully understanding of the situation at hand. So until next time, you guys, take care of yourselves. America first, and Christ is King. The few brave men who have actually tried to go out and do something about white genocide or talk about Jewish influence, the Zionist-occupied government, we all know that they get crucified, their careers get destroyed, and so we need to find ways to support each other. One of the ways that I have done that is by creating my Substack, where there are exclusive early access to documentaries, my weekly vlogs, there are ebooks there. There's even an opportunity to set up a one-on-one 30-minute Ask Me Anything if you'd like. All of the proceeds from my Substack, from my YouTube channel, from the merch gets reinvested in the platform. I use that to pay my employees. I use that to buy the equipment that I need, the cameras, the lights, the MacBook, all the books, all of the software, pay for marketing, everything else, but also it protects my literal life. So if you want to help out, please do head on to Substack, get yourself a subscription. Thank you. I appreciate it. America first and Christ is King.